This is Alberta to Arizona. I'm Tracie Gray, real estate investor. With me in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada is Devin Gray, professional real estate agent with EXP Realty Group and Mogul Realty Group. And then down across the border in Phoenix, Scottsdale, lucky her, Arizona, we've got Diane Brennan, professional real estate agent with Coldwell Banker. And we're talking about investing, buying, selling property in Canada, in the States, how it compares, what the markets are like. And yeah, it's definitely slowing as far as...
Well, and we'll get to that. We've got to be quick, though, today because Tracie's on fumes because she was up late last night getting our boys ready for their first day of school and then was up early at 2 o'clock. So she's been up for quite a bit of time.
Why is she up at 2 o'clock, though? Because she hosts the...
Yeah. She's on global television this week for filling in for traffic. So it's...
doing traffic reports on the
traffic
morning
reports, that's right. Yes.
So early morning and then up late last night trying to get the boys ready for school. Where's your shirt? Do you have any pants? Do you have any shoes?
Junk clean underwear.
Yeah. Did school go
Check
back?
the junk drawer.
Did school go back this week in Arizona?
No, they went back in August, end of July, some people.
Oh, is that right?
Yes, it's crazy. I know when we were young, it was like the beginning of September. So that's the same way in Canada. But here they're going back like earlier and earlier. They get out in May and then they're back end of July, beginning of August. It's crazy.
Oh, wow. That's very different.
Yeah,
very. And
Catholic
with the heat.
schools here that go all year, they call it all year schooling, and they started back on the 9th of August. So they only got a couple of weeks and they already went back in. I thought, that's terrible. Kids
But
should have summer.
they get 2 weeks off more. Like here we have year round, but they get a fall intercession for 2 weeks and then they get longer breaks throughout the year.
That's true. Yeah, they do get some breaks in between, but we get, well, you have a different story. We really don't get much nice weather here in Edmonton. So when we do, we like to enjoy it. And I always like the kids to be able to have a couple months off.
It's been tough. It's 30 degrees, which is, I think, about 80 Fahrenheit. So it's been very hot all summer in August. Is that right?
We're under a heat advisory right now.
Oh, I know, but just that's
8
very,
degrees today.
It's very, very warm here for us. I mean,
It's warm here too. It shouldn't be this hot. It's crazy.
Our heat advisories are a little different than yours, Diane.
normally it's chilly and everybody's outside taking pictures. It's like, Dad, can I just go in the school? I'm freezing.
It's usually
like,
snowing, isn't it?
Yeah, we're expecting snow on the weekend. Yeah.
You know what we might be? That might be a snow alert that just popped up.
Yeah, right.
This is Edmonton. It can happen anytime.
Yeah. But we are actually hoping that, because we do have a summer lull, and so it's funny where a lot of people in Alberta say, oh, well, why would anybody be looking for properties? Everyone's back in school and stuff like that. But I do find that it just, everybody gets back to their routine, and part of that routine is, you know, accomplishing things before the Christmas break, and that can include buying or selling a house. So we are, at least in Alberta, expecting a little bit of a softer landing than other parts of Canada. They're actually talking about prices dropping as much as 25%, but that's going to be in Toronto and Vancouver where things were so overheated anyways. They're not necessarily expecting that here, but we are still definitely in a buyer's market. You were saying that listings have dropped off a little bit?
A little bit. We've had a huge influx of listings, so that's slowed a little bit according to the Cromford Report, which is a subscription-based service that realtors have access to, and it's a really great team of data analysts that look at the numbers daily. So they have dropped a little bit, but activity has slowed way down here. So it's been really frustrating. Gone are the days where you'd hold a 4-hour open house and then sell it in the 5th hour. It's taking a lot to market the properties now, and sellers keeping their properties in tip-top shape. So before they could sell it as is, not kind of fix anything, people would overbid and, you know, bid 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80,000 over list price, and you didn't have to do a thing. Things have changed, and sellers have to really have their home in tip-top shape before they put it on the market, because the competition is tough.
Yeah, we're definitely delivering the same message to sellers. I mean, they're all reaching out and saying, well, no one ever has any advice. And so, of course, the advice is exactly what you said. And a lot of times that's not what they want to hear. They don't want to have to do all that work. They don't want to spend money but that is the reality of it. The alternative is that they've got a property that's going to sit on the market, or else it's going to get a significantly lower offer than what they're happy about. So there's really no other way around it.
Yeah, I'm lucky I work with a gal because I hate being the bad cop and saying, okay, you have to do this, you have to do that. So I actually have a gal that comes in with me and she looks at the whole property and tells my clients exactly what they need to do. And even little things, you know how we always use our garage to get into the home? So we always forget about the front door. So we forget about that first appearance. And, you know, all of our doors are kind of dusty. We never use them. We don't, we hopefully we clean them, but a lot of times we don't because we're so used to going in through the garage. So little things like cleaning the front door. And she goes through and she'll suggest, you know, do we need to paint here? And then we'll actually rearrange their furniture that they already have to kind of to help them and stuff. So it's always, you know, good to have that as well. And I'm sure, Devin, you've got a good eye too, that you're able to tell your clients that. I love having a person tell them the news that you need to do this. We play good cop, bad cop, but she does do a great job of, of explaining it and telling everybody what they need to do. And they're like, it's part of the team, and people kind of get to it and stuff. And we also suggest that they actually do a home inspection first. So there's a whole bunch of things that you don't know is wrong because it's not really affecting the home at the time. So it's always great to just get an inspection first, spend that money and get those little things fixed so that they don't come up and it's smooth. And you can offer that inspection as well, you know, in the MLS listing or to buyers that are looking through the property. So a couple of things we do.
Yeah, I've always thought that's a great suggestion, and you can actually do it two ways. When you get an inspection before you list, you can either use it as a list of things to get fixed, or I also know other people that will basically put it out there and they'll basically say, look, here's all the things that are wrong with the property. We are fully aware of them. We are fully disclosing them. We've priced the house accordingly.
What we priced it at.
So do not come to us after the fact to renegotiate, because we'll say, there it was. So I've seen that work as well. I mean, it never stops the buyer from potentially coming back and pushing, but ultimately, if there's anything really, really significant that's going to kill any deal, the seller can fix those things anyways. But all of the little loose ends, you know, I'm finding that there's a lot of buyers right now, and through that, the buyers agents that are getting pretty nitpicky. I just recently did one where they wanted you know, bedroom doors realigned because they're sticking a little bit, and you know, just little bits of grout needing to be replaced, and like, which I get can be something that is a lot of potential work for buyers that they don't necessarily want. But you know, when we were in more of a balance than certainly a seller's market, you never saw any of that stuff coming up. They just wanted to deal with the house. Yeah. And so it's interesting how that stuff comes back. And of course, sellers, some sellers are different. Some are like, oh yeah, fair enough, I'll get those things taken care of. And other sellers are like, are you kidding me? They grinded me hard, and now they want all this extra little stuff done that they clearly could have seen when they were doing the walkthroughs. But again, those are the things that come with a buyer's market.
Because that's one of my pet peeves when we're selling a property, is when people come in and they put an offer on it, but then they come and do the inspection and they go, oh, it's an older furnace. It's like, okay, but you saw that when you put in, right? Like when you made the offer, you could easily see how old the furnace was. That wasn't hidden away. That wasn't something the inspector found out later, right? So those kind of things, I always go, no, you guys saw that one, so no, we're not.
Yeah, and we have a seller property disclosure statement here that lists like how old the AC units are, and you know, all the condition of everything and all the work that's done with the house. So we actually have a document that buyers can look at before they make an offer to see that. So I totally get you there for sure. I find Canadians tough negotiators though. So that doesn't,
because we're talking about furnaces and you're talking about air conditioning units.
Well, ours is attached HVAC, heating and cooling, in the same thing. So yeah.
But it's funny that we brought up the furnace, but then you threw in the air conditioner, because you can tell which one's in Canada and which one's don't.
For sure.
But I also find that you know, it's got to be on page 1 of how to buy or sell real estate, which is don't ask, don't get. Mm-hmm. So you know, I know when I'm on the buying side and people are hemming and hawing, it's like, well, you know, put it in the lap of the sellers to make them say no. But 100% they're not going to take it. They're not going to get it done. So that does help. I know, I'm sure the same thing with you, by being on the buying and the selling side, because you can put yourself in the other side a little bit more, and kind of get a better idea as to whether or not they're serious about this, or they're just throwing in extra things because there's got a few things that they would like to get done.
Yeah, for sure. I do find Canadians are tough negotiators when they
You'd
come down
mentioned
here to buy property. Wow. It's like, I've had to explain that's people here are not used to that. Like once we've negotiated a price and they're coming back with this stuff, so I find that they like a deal. So, which is good, understandable. We all do. So they're very good negotiators. Nothing wrong with
Well,
that.
and yeah, and for sure, and I think as well, depending on the circumstance, there are, I think, and maybe it's more of a Canadian thing. There's two ways of looking at the inspections. One is, hey, before I ultimately buy this house, I'm going to buy an inspection so I know all of the issues that I need to take care of. The other side of it is, okay, inspection time. Let's see how much more money we can get off by grinding out all of these things that need to be done. And I do deal with buyers from both sides. I mean, especially from a standpoint of investors, which certainly is understandable. Obviously, it's a money making proposition, and they're looking to, that old saying about you make money on the purchase of the property. They're looking to get it as low as possible. But I do think that sometimes, let's just say every situation is different. But I don't have anything to compare it to. It's interesting you say Canadians are hard negotiators, because all we know is dealing with people up here.
Yeah, well, I think that, when we had our crash here and the dollar was at par and a lot of Canadians were purchasing, I mean, they were coming in really, really, really low, which that's how the negotiation process was at home. So it was different than here. So I had to just kind of tell them, they don't do that here. Or if people were insistent, we went through the process and then they found out that the seller wasn't just not accepting that. But one thing I wanted to mention, the thing that protects sellers when somebody comes at you, let's say we do the inspection. Well, we have a formal document called a BINSR. It's a buyer inspection notice, seller response. It's a formal document where we ask for the repairs. I don't know if you guys have a similar document or you call it something different. But I will actually put in quotes from actual contractors on how much it is, the costs and the quotes for each item that they're asking for, in case they want to give a credit in lieu of. So they're not asking for a random number. And then by the same token, I'll do that with my buyers. I'll supply quotes. This is what we'd like fixed. Here's our quotes. But if I'm representing sellers, I'll also get the same quotes from what the buyers are asking, because you might have inflated invoices. So it's another negotiation here. So a lot of agents will just kind of pick an arbitrary number, which I think you have to have the facts to back that up for your requests.
We don't have any document like that, but certainly that's what the expectation is. If somebody's just throwing out a number saying, here's a few things, and so we want this off, we usually do ask for some sort of support on that, let's see the estimates from the professional, service professional, that type of thing. Or it gets challenged. So if somebody says, oh, there's this, and this, and it's $10,000. Okay, well, we're going to go do our own due diligence, and we're going to go talk to various professionals and get quotes. And then you might end up with, the buyer's saying it's $10,000 off, but I've found quotes that have a total of, say, $7,000. And so then there'll be a negotiation off the 10 to the 7. And then usually what happens up here, more times than not always, but there's always kind of a work towards the middle, So let's say or even if the seller agrees that, oh yeah, okay, you're asking for $10,000 off, I'm certainly aware of these issues. How about we split it down the middle at 5? That can work a lot of times. Sometimes the buyer are pretty rigid on asking for the full 10, and then sometimes the seller is very rigid in saying, look, you grinded me down enough on the initial negotiation. I am not prepared to move regardless of what's wrong with the property. So we do go through a similar process, but there's no document like you talked about. It's more just like for myself, I basically will itemize all the items. I will take a picture of each of the items that come up in the inspection and send that to them, along with an estimated cost of what it will be to replace, and then total that up, and then basically say, the sellers would like, or the buyers would like this amount of money off in lieu of taking that, getting that done. I've seen some other buying agents to me basically say, here's a bunch of deficiencies, what's the seller going to do about it? And they don't really, they kind of leave it loose ended in regards to, is the seller going to
Oh,
fix it? Is the seller going to take money off? That's been an interesting process. And sometimes my sellers are like, I want to do this. And then sometimes my seller is like, okay, so all these things are wrong. What? So I will actually have to go back to the buying agent and say, well, what are you asking for? What do you want?
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think, sorry, I was just going to say, I think that might be from the old school of, make your negotiating partner be the one to offer up the first price, and then start negotiating from there. It's the only thing I can suggest that why they would do that, because maybe they're thinking, oh, we're hoping that 5, but maybe the seller will come back and offer 10 off or something like that, which never happens.
Never happens.
But anyways.
Ours has to be more specific. Are you required to give the inspection report to the seller? We are down here.
Very interesting, and no, we don't. It's entirely up to the seller as to whether or not buyers will ask, and
You mean,
sellers will ask, and the buyer has every right to completely refuse or not. Like I said, I will take out snippets. So let's say there's 6 issues that they have a concern with in a 60-page report, we will itemize those. But I had one come back to me just last week where there was no pictures or anything. It was just, we knew these were the issues anyways, so I didn't really need it. But no, it was just these 7 or 8 issues. What are you going to deal with them? So and that's an interesting conversation as well, because the buyers go, hey, I just paid $500 for this. I'm not just going to hand it over to the seller, and then he's got it. If this deal collapses, well, now he's got himself a free report. Other buyers are absolutely like, hey, nothing to hide. So here you go, Mr. Seller. We want you to know of the 30 things wrong with the house, and we're only asking for you to deal with 5 of them. So it's all over the spectrum.
Yeah, here it's required. As soon as the inspection is sent, you're required to send it over to the seller's agent. So that is also good, because once the sellers know what is wrong with their house, they have to change that seller property disclosure statement. So then they therefore now are aware of these issues and have to disclose it to the next buyer. So it's kind of good for the buyer that's already in play, because they're like, look, either you take the money down or you're going to have to put it back on the market, and then also disclose all the stuff that's wrong with your home.
So that does still happen. So even though the report isn't released, if something is brought up and it's like, look, this is a significant issue, and I'm not talking about like a loose window or something like that. If there's a significant problem like mold in the attic, or a foundational crack, or rotting deck, something significant, that's now been exposed to them. They're obviously going to investigate it, and they're basically going to find out. And I have had some sellers say, that's not right, that's not right. And it's like, well, here is this portion of the report that says that. You need to look into this. And so I've never had a situation where they don't look into it and now it's exposed, and then it comes down to a situation, where if let's say the buyer's asking for $5,000 off and the seller's not moving, there is always that conversation to say, well, we're less than 24 hours from losing the buyer, but now you've got this issue that you're still going to need to deal with, because now you have to disclose it. So we do have to still run down that same road of disclosure, but it's just the sharing of the sharing of the deposit or of the inspection is not mandatory.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I like our way better.
Big difference, yeah. Big difference.
It is interesting about that, because I'm certainly, I would potentially suggest I'm migrating towards some of the more rigidity of what you've got down there. We run into the same sort of thing with BC, but I have had people suggest that there's more autonomy between how the buyer and the seller want to deal with the transaction in Alberta with that, and that, as opposed to having to be forced to go down this way, it allows them. And I think that's kind of a little bit in the spirit of, if there's too much rigidity in let's call it the public forum of dealing with real estate agents, some people or more people might migrate towards wanting to deal with things privately. Whereas if we've got something where basically there is a lot more autonomy between how a buyer and a seller want to negotiate, and it's all their decision on what they want to provide, that allows still that spirit of flexibility. I want to say capitalism, but it's not so grandeur as that. But basically, just that there's just a lot more autonomy and a lot more control in the hands of the seller and the buyer on how they want to deal with this. And if one side or the other doesn't like how it's going, they have every right to pull the pin.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I like it here. A lot of agents here, and if there are any Canadians that are purchasing down in the US, we have 70,000 agents. It's very easy to get your real estate license here. It's a lot more discriminating in Canada. You guys have what, 4,000, 5,000 in Edmonton?
Edmonton area, we've got just a little shy of 4,000 for the
Okay.
Edmonton area.
And so we have 70,000. So what that means is that it's easier to get your license here. So you have you have a lot of people with a different way of doing business. Let's put it that way.
Oh, I'm sure.
So I find a lot of agents are, well, we want 5,000 off. And I'll say, well, where's your 5,000? You're going to ask me on each individual item. I'm like, yeah, this is my seller's money. Of course I'm going to ask you. They're just not going to hand over $5,000 of their money, to fix these small items. Like I want contractors. I want, licensed contractors. I want their bids and I want to see what you've researched. So a lot of agents here won't, they'll just pull out an arbitrary number out of thin air. And I've seen a lot of people who've been in the business a long time do that as well. And they get really upset when I ask for those numbers. Like, it's like, do your job. It's crazy,
Yeah, and that could be where there is that need. I mean, I know that on one hand, as I'm listening to myself tell you, and you're talking about, well, there's this document, and there's this has to happen, that has to happen. There is a lot of accountability put on real estate agents in Alberta to make sure that we do follow the straight and narrow path. It's released every month by our controlling body is RECA, Real Estate Council of Alberta, which is basically an offshoot of the government of Alberta, and we're bound by the Real Estate Act. And every month, if somebody has a complaint, like a letter of reprimand or a fine, that's released to everybody in Alberta, and we can read their names and see what they've been fined and what they've been charged with, and it's full disclosure. And if somebody actually loses their license, it's usually like the fifth story on the evening news, and it's usually in the newspapers and various things like that. So there's kind of always that accountability aspect of it. There's certainly been 2 or 3 agents that I know that have been fined, and in some situations it's pretty interesting what they've been fined for. When we were during COVID, and there was only a maximum of 2 people plus the real estate agent allowed in the property. Lots of people have doorbell cameras. Lots of sellers will sit half a block down the street and watch the house. It's their house, it's their property. And lots of situations where a family of 4 or a family of 5 with the realtor would go in, and the seller would make a complaint, and that realtor would be fined $1,500. Lots of fines for not having masks. We were mandated to have masks. Again, people showing up at the front door, and the seller watching on the front camera, or watching across the street from the neighbor's place or whatever, and seeing them all go in without any masks on. Boom, $1,500 fines. So it is. I mean, on one hand, it does seem like we're a little bit loose compared to what happens in Arizona, but on the other hand, it's pretty rigid, and people do get fined for some things that you wouldn't on one hand think is too significant, but if that's the rule in place, then you're going to get fined if you don't follow them.
Yeah, we have the Arizona Board of Real Estate too that does that as well. I just find that they're not strict enough. I sound like a hard ass, but and we get the email too notifying sanctions and all that stuff and fines. And it's an email and it's like Arizona Department of Real Estate. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, am I in trouble? Oh no, this is a list of who else. It always makes your heart skip a beat. It's like, oh, okay, it's just a list of the other people that are in trouble. I'm like, but we also, there's a difference here between realtors and real estate agents. If you take an ethics class, then you are considered a realtor. So you abide by the code of ethics, which I don't find is enforceable. I'll give you one example. I had a client who suffered a stroke and was selling his home. So his mobility wasn't that easy. I had an agent that said, hey, I want to go in there. I said, no, he's done for the day. We actually have accepted an offer. And he goes, well, I'd like to see the house anyways. And I said, you can't. We've accepted an offer. The seller has suffered a stroke, da, 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 da. This agent went and knocked on the door and asked if he could go in the house.
Anyway.
Right? Disgusting. I was like so livid. So I went to file a complaint, and because the agent, and he knew how to work the system, because he didn't access the lockbox, they didn't have a record of him actually doing that. And he got, off scot-free. So we have a lot of things that need to be cleaned up. There's a lot of great professionals here selling real estate in Arizona, but there's also that element that isn't really playing, by the rules. So
Yeah, that would be here as well for sure. But good thing we're not.
That's
right. We're not.
Straight as an arrow.
Yeah, that's right.
For sure. We provide great service. Absolutely. And the best for our clients.
Right. So if you're looking for a straight arrow real estate agent, and you say realtor?
So on my
Realtor.
radio show, I would make people pay $1 if they said realtor and added the I, so it's realtor.
If you're looking for a straight arrow realtor, we've got Diane Brennan down in the States. How can they get a hold of you, Diane?
Sure. My email is can't remember her email at Gmail, and my phone number is 602-620-2277. You can email me for a buyer advisory if you're looking to purchase property or thinking about it, or think, is this a good idea? I have a great resource called a buyer advisory with a lot of great links and a lot of great information about living in Arizona, spending part of the time here, and things that you should look for, and the contract process. So it's chock full of good info.
And it's free.
Free. I was charging people $1, but now Tracie says it's free. I'm kidding.
Now I said it's free. You don't get your $1, Diane. Sorry about that.
The gig's up. The gig's up.
The gig's up. And then we've got Devin up in Canada.
Yeah, Devin Gray with eXp Realty and the Mogul Realty Group. My cell number is 780-951-9279. Email is Devin, DEVIN, @mogulrg.com.
And we'll have that all in the show notes too. So
that's right.
Yeah.
So you can just click on it. It makes it super easy. Thanks for watching. This is Alberta to Arizona. We'll see you next week.